Welcome to payroll lesson number 1 on setting up the general tab. When we come into the payroll program, this is what it looks like, and we're going to set it up in a logical sequence of events. But the first thing we need to do is work in the general tab, so I'm going to click that open. And because I've been currently using the payroll program, I do have some information in here already, but I'm going to show you how to enter it in here anyway. The first thing you need to consider is what the current payroll year is. When you receive the payroll program, it does have a current year in there, but depending on when you get it going, you may need to set up a new payroll year anyway. So when you click open the current year drop-down, if you don't see the current year in there, we need to set up a new year. And that's a very simple proposition. What we do is we go up to Setup on the menu bar and we select Create New Payroll Year. This opens up this window where we can then tell the program where to grab our data from as we carry over from year to year. So we're always going to use the last payroll year, or maybe it's the current one right now, as our source year, and then we can create our new payroll year. Now, the neat thing about this is that even as you're going along from year to year, if you're creating a new payroll year in preparation for the next year, then what you can do is you can set up your new payroll year and switch between the 2 years in this drop down here. So because COBRA carries your payroll information year by year by year, taxes, benefits, everything are stored year by year. So you can prepare your next year by creating it. If you have changes to tax tables, they can all be done in that year. And then you can switch back to the current year to finish up the current year. So you have some advantages to this payroll program by carrying the data year by year. But in this case, when you're first getting started, you want to use a source year that already has things set up in it, like tax tables, etc. Set up the new year that you're creating, and then you can transfer over all of these different elements of information from the prior year into the current year. COBRA will also transfer only active employees. So during the last year, if some employees became inactive, when you create the new year, they will not be carried over to this new year. So once we have established the source year, the new year, we can say create, click the create button, and it will verify for us that first of all we haven't already done this for the year that we're trying to set up, and it will allow us to set up that new year. When it's done, it says if you want to work in the new year, you need to switch to it first. So I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to look for that new year in this drop down. Now, because we just set it up, it's not in this drop down. So what we need to do, just for a quick moment, is exit out of payroll and then just quickly go back into it. Then as we come into the general tab, you will see the new year in that drop down, so you can select that new year that you want to work in. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to the current year and talk about setting up the rest of this general tab. Because after a year is set up, you can see that it does carry over the first day of that current period, and you can set this to what your current date is for the payroll, but it will keep up with you as you begin using it. Now as I hit enter, the federal ID field becomes highlighted, and this is where you want to enter your federal ID number. I would recommend leaving the dash out of the federal ID, because if you're going to use direct deposit, the direct deposit program doesn't like dashes. So you want to leave your dash out of your federal ID. The next thing you want to do is select your main cash account for the payroll program by clicking open the drop down here and selecting the appropriate cash account from your general ledger, so that it's displayed here. So if I click it open and I select a different one, then it will be displayed here, but I'll set this back. Lastly, if you're working in multiple states or even an individual state, you want to set your state ID in this little table here. And you do this first by clicking open the drop down, and it will list all 50 states, so you can find your state in here and select it. Now once you select it and it's displayed, you can enter your ID here. Then to save your general tab information, you just click your save button on the toolbar and everything will be saved. Now a note about state IDs here. If you're working in multiple states, you can set IDs for multiple states in here too by simply just selecting your state ID and then entering your actual state ID number in this field here. And then Cobra will automatically save that information anyway. So anytime you come in here, you want to see what your state ID is, you first need to select it from this list. And if it's been set up in here, it will automatically appear in this ID field. This ends the lesson on setting up the general tab.